Hello everybody, my name is Tiffany and welcome to my channel. On this channel, you can look forward to discussing true crime, a little bit of history and mystery, serial killers, and other irregular topics. We'll dive into some dark psychology, but don't worry, we'll always find our way back together. If this sounds interesting to you, you are more than welcome to join our little irregular community. Please subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, and leave your thoughts down below. So come on over, get in here. So how is everybody? I am so happy to be back, but to be honest with you, my day has been meh. It is the unofficial last day of summer. The kids go back to school tomorrow, and pretty much everyone here in New York was rained out of fun. It was raining all day, so any fun plans that you had to be canceled. Well, the rain inspired me to film today's video. It was just dark and gloomy around the apartment, and I was thinking maybe I should just film my next video, but which script do I want to film? And then I decided I've done so much research on the Dyatlov past mystery, but I haven't wrote a script for it. And because it was just so ugly outside, I figured, oh, let me spend the day and do some research and write a script for it. And let me tell you, I spent hours and I wrote about 19 pages worth of research and notes. I watched a lot of other YouTube videos on it. I watched a documentary on it on Amazon. If I can remember the name, I will definitely link it or put it down below. And I feel like it was very appropriate because we're going into fall season. Like I said, it's the unofficial last day of summer. We're going into fall season, which also means spooky season, which I know a lot of you are probably going to be really excited about. And well, as I did my research on this, I really scared myself. So in honor of spooky season, today we are going to be discussing the Dyatlov Pass incident. I am going to mess up so many names here because we are taking our journey into the Siberian mountains in Russia, and I am not familiar with the Russian language and find it very difficult to pronounce a lot of the first and last names and the cities and the towns that we're going to be discussing. So I apologize in advance for not saying a lot of the names correctly. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I promise you I am not trying to be disrespectful or disrespect their names or the cities and towns that are in this case, but I'm going to do my best to say them correctly. I apologize in advance. Looking down a lot, or probably even for most of the video, it's because I'm going to be deferring to my notes. There's a lot of information in this case, so please forgive me for looking down a lot. Still very new to YouTube, and I promise you I will get better, so just hang in there with me. Alright, so let's get into it. This is the gruesome, true story of 9 hikers whose mysterious deaths continue to be unsolved. Viewer discretion is advised. On January 23, 1959, a group of 10 cross-country hikers set out to earn their Grade 3 certification. This is a climbing rating system that classifies what level you are on as a hiker. Currently, there are 7 grades of hiking skills, but in 1959, Grade 3 was the highest certification one could achieve. And as you may now be gathering, this accomplished group of young hikers were seeking the highest achievement of climbing and hiking. Igor Dyatlov was a 23-year-old student and cross-country hiker who organized this trip. He enlisted his partner, Zenaida Kalmagora, a fellow student and love interest, to help him recruit experienced hikers to join the trip. Together, they recruited more than 8 fellow hikers. So we have Igor Dyatlov, which is the leader of this excursion. We have Zenaida Kalmagora. We have Yuri Doroshenko, Ludmila Dominina, Georgia Krivonanchenko, Alexander Kolovatorov, Rustam Slobodyan, Nikolai Brignolis, Semyon Zoltolgarv, and Yuri Yudin. Yuri did not approach this excursion haphazardly. He meticulously mapped out the regions that they would be traveling through, and even learned the language and culture of the Monsin people, the indigenous people of the Ural Mountains. On January 25th, they arrived at Vishay, a rural town in Gornezhvatsky district. They spent the night in the small rural town that is made up of only 13 streets. During their short time there, they stocked up on food and supplies and set off into the mountains. On January 28th, one day into the trip, Yuri Yudin complained of severe back pain and decided it was best to end his journey with his team. He returned home. He was the last person to see this group alive. The 9 remaining members continued their trip, documenting it via photos and journal entries. The first few days were filled with hope, excitement, and fun. But on January 31st, the last journal entry was written by the group. Reads, weather today is a bit worse. Wind west, snowing, probably from the pines. Since the sky is perfectly clear, started relatively early around 10 a.m. Got back on the Mansi Trail. Up to now, we are following a Mansi Trail on which so long passed a hunter with deer. Yesterday, it seems we stumbled upon this resting stop. Deer didn't go any further. The hunter took the beaten trail by himself. We are following in his steps. Had a surprisingly good overnight. Air is warm and dry, though it's -18 to -24 degrees Celsius. Walking is especially hard today. We can't see the trail, have to grope our way through at times, can't do more than 1.52 kilometers per hour. Trying out new ways to clear the path. First, in line drops his backpack, skis forward for 5 minutes, comes back for a 10 to 15 minute break, then catches up with the group. That's one way to keep laying ski tracks nonstop. Hard on the second hiker though, who has to follow the new trail with full gear on his back. We gradually leave the Yaspia Valley. It's upwards all the way, but goes rather smoothly. Thin birch grove replaces firs. The end of forest is getting closer. Wind is western, warm, piercing, with speed like the draft from airplanes at takeoff. Fern, open spaces. I can't even think of settling up storage here. It's nearly 4. Have to start looking for a place to pitch the tent. We go south in the Ospia Valley. Seems this place has the deepest snow. Wind not strong. Snow 1.22 meters deep. We are exhausted, but start the fire camp on the logs. Too tired to dig a fire pit. Dinner's in the tent, nice and warm. Can't imagine such comfort on the ridge with howling winds outside, hundreds of kilometers away from human settlements. On February 1st, they arrived at what is known as the Dead Mountain. There, they began their ascent up the mountain, where the weather worsened and the trip became challenging. They traveled through -19-degree weather up the mountain. There was barely any visibility that day or night. due to a vicious snowstorm. They pitched their tent 2 kilometers up the mountain and decided to camp out due to the storm and for safety reasons. This is the last explainable action of the 9 members of the Dyatlov Pass incident. What occurs next has haunted and perplexed people to this day. The group was expected to return back from their trip between the 12th and the 15th of February. By the time the date of their expected return had come and passed, friends and family members of the missing hikers demanded a search party be put together. The head of the military department, Colonel Georgy Semenovich, assembled and led a rescue mission. So between February 20th and 21st, several search parties set out looking for Igor and his crew. Despite high-level officials and highly trained searchers, including search dogs and airplanes, days passed with no evidence of the hikers. On February 25th, searchers found the trail of skis, assumed to be that of the missing hikers. And on February 26th, on the slopes of the Kalt Sukil Mountains, which is also known as the Dead Mountain, the missing hikers' tents were found. The scenes were unsettling. The tent was torn in several places. Items were scattered and thrown about around the tent. Warm weather clothes such as boots and coats were found inside the tent, but the hikers were nowhere to be found. By morning time, the searchers found a trail of footsteps and followed it down. For some time, they found more evidence of the missing group's trail. On February 27th, the bodies of Yuri Dukashenko and Yuri Kravenchenko were found frozen and almost naked. All they had on were socks, their underwear, and shirts. I'll pause here to give you a warning. From here on in, I'll be disclosing the way the hikers were found, their cause of death, and I will be inserting pictures. The pictures are very disturbing, very gruesome. They don't even look real. They just look like they came out of a horror film. So if you want to skip through or just check out of this video now, you can do so. I won't mind. Next episode is still gonna be gruesome, so I couldn't say come back next episode, but this episode is, these pictures are gonna be difficult to view. So again, viewer discretion is advised. So I'm gonna continue now. For the first 2 hikers found, I will be addressing them as Yuri D and Yuri K, just to distinguish between the two, but also because their last names are very difficult for me to pronounce over and over again. Yuri K's official cause of death was hypothermia and fatigue, and this is going to be a pattern that you will find for the next few hikers that were found. However, his injuries included bruises all over his body, skin missing from one hand, and a very bad burn on his leg. Yuri D's official cause of death was determined to be hypothermia. His injuries included burn marks on his head and foam coming out of his mouth. Bodies were strangely, neatly laid side by side. After days turned into weeks of searching for the remaining 7 hikers, the bodies of Igor, Zenaida, and Rustam were found. Igor's official cause of death was hypothermia. He was found dressed but did not have a hat, gloves, or boots on, which is strange considering the freezing temperatures. Zenaida's official cause of death was ruled hypothermia. Rustam's official cause of death was also ruled hypothermia. However, he sustained blunt force trauma to his head, which resulted in a fractured skull. The last 4 hikers were found in April once the snow began to melt. Alexander's official cause of death was hypothermia. His injuries include his neck being deformed, injuries behind his ear, and all over his body, and the skull was partially exposed. Ludmila's official cause of death was hemorrhaging, multiple fractured ribs, and internal bleeding. Her injuries included a crushed chest, 10 broken and separated ribs, a smashed heart, and a smashed nose that went into her skull. She died screaming with her mouth wide open. Her tongue had been removed while still alive, and her eyes had been gouged out. Nikolai's official cause of death was traumatic internal injury. His skull suffered significant damage. And lastly, Alexander. However, Alexander was not who he claimed to be. His true identity was unknown to the 8 hikers. His real name was Semyon, a special force soldier, or at least a suspected special force soldier. His body was covered in tattoos, which included strange symbols. His official cause of death was ruled traumatic internal injury. His injuries included a smashed chest, broken ribs, injuries to his head, which exposed his skull, and missing eyeballs, which were never recovered. By April, the missing hikers' bodies had all been found. Each body more injured than the next. The last 4 sustained horrific injuries. So much so, the medical examiner said the injuries could not be inflicted by another human. The injuries resembled that of a car accident with such blunt force trauma. Upon further investigation, 2 of those 4 hikers were found to be radioactive. Yes, their clothing had radioactive material on it. Thus beginning the theories, and some would say conspiracy theories, of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Let's take a moment to process the photos we just viewed and the injuries sustained to these hikers, especially the last 4 hikers. Yuri D, Yuri K, Igor, Rustam, and Zenaida's injuries line up with the medical examiner's ruling of hypothermia. The removal of clothing is a common symptom of hypothermia. The victims of fatal hypothermia will feel a warm sensation which leads them to undress. Although the temperatures are freezing, hemorrhaging in the brain is common in these cases. However, Ludmila, Simeon, Nikolai's death were all unexplainable brutality. Not to forget, the bodies and clothes had traces of radioactivity. Remember, they were hiking on Dead Mountain in the middle of nowhere. How do you explain the bruises all over the body, the burns, the crushed skulls, the eyes and tongue removed, injuries behind the ear, a crushed nose, crushed heart, possible strangulation, and possible defense wounds, with also knuckles being bruised and badly beaten, which could indicate they also inflicted some of the injuries onto their team members. The Soviet government ruled the incident as an unfortunate event, possibly caused by the hikers' own fault or some sort of natural disaster. They closed the case quickly and sealed it, leaving friends and family members and the public confused and left without any real answers. One theory was a small but brutal avalanche caused the deaths of the last 4 hikers. It is theorized that the hikers were in their tent relaxing or possibly cooking dinner when they heard a loud noise caused by the avalanche and began to panic and cut their way out of the tent. Some of the hikers stood behind while the others went out to discover what was the source of that loud noise. The 4 hikers who made it the farthest are suspected to be the ones who were caught by the avalanche, therefore inflicting such horrendous injuries to their body. This theory doesn't make a lot of sense, but is the most scientific of all the other theories. We'll circle back to the avalanche theory soon. Some of the more extreme theories revolve around aliens and experiments by the Soviet army. The alien theory is explained by some reports of an unnatural glow around the last 4 hikers, and the last known picture taken by Semyon, a blurred picture of lights. Many believe it was his attempt at documenting what they were witnessing, an alien spacecraft. There have been other reported sightings of alien spacecrafts in the area, but this is probably all speculation. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the case files of the Dyatlov Pass incident was released. This renewed interest in the case, which was shrouded in mystery for decades. A popular theory is that nuclear missiles were being tested near the hikers' tents. When they heard the loud sound, they panicked and went out to investigate. The last 4 hikers were discovered by the Soviet government, and in order to cover up their secret missile experiment, they killed them, or perhaps they were killed by a missile accidentally dropped on them. This theory is held by many who were close to the victims. Yuri Kolchevik was a 12-year-old boy when he attended the funerals of the hikers. This case never left him and inspired him to dedicate his life to uncovering the truth of the Dyatlov Pass mystery. He founded the Dyatlov Foundation, and in this foundation, in his small office, he held most of the, I guess what you could call artifacts or evidence of the actual scene of the crime, such as flashlights and articles of clothing that were found. He was able to recover them and keep them. He even has the photos that have been taken on their cameras, which I thought was really cool. In one of the documentaries, as he's discussing it, he is handling a lot of these items without gloves, which was a bit strange to me. However, like I said, he dedicated his life to this, and he died himself in 2021 on his own expedition. I mention him because he had a lot of great theories, and he contributed so much to some of the theories that we've discussed and the theories that we may be concluding to. He really pushed to keep this case in the forefront, in the limelight, so that people would never forget these 9 hikers. In 2007, Svetlana Oss wrote an English article for the Moscow Times describing the Dyatlov Pass incident. This introduced English-speaking people to the story. She then wrote a book on the case, which is regarded as highly researched, and it is very respected. She points out the first criminal investigation was documented to have been launched on February 6, 1959. This is the date on the official document. As you may remember, the group was not expected to return before February 12th. So you may be asking yourself, why was there a document created 6 days before they were expected to return, and they hadn't even been reported missing yet? Was this a clerical error? This is something we will never know. Another popular theory is the hikers stole sacred items from the indigenous people. As revenge, a shaman cut their tent as they slept and released a hallucinogenic agent into their tent, which made them hallucinate, therefore explaining the odd decisions the experienced hikers made, which ultimately led to their death. They are a fishing and hunting community and are a strong tribe who held their own against the Soviet Union until they no longer could. There are reports of deep distrust against the government amongst the Mansi people. Could this be a viable theory? Yes. However, we would have to consider the injuries of the last 4 hikers discovered. Could they have inflicted these injuries on each other? We know that those who commit murder in a drug-induced state sometimes exhibit supernatural strength and unnatural behaviors. So it is possible, and it is definitely a formidable theory. 2 Mansi brothers who were interviewed gave conflicting stories regarding the sacred places in the mountain. One is on record completely denying the existence of sacred places and even the existence of holy deities, while the other brother identified the known sacred place of the Mansi people. However, it has since been discovered that they had many sacred places in the Dead Mountain. The most sacred being Man Papu Nur, in the most sacred place of the Mansi people. And guess what? The Dyatlov group took a picture of the caves that are considered the holiest and most sacred places of the Mansi people. There is actual evidence of this. While the Mansi people deny going up the mountain, there are clear signs of their symbols and language etched into trees in several places on the mountain. Rescuers also found fresh tombs, which were tents built in the area where the hikers were killed. These tombs are native to Mansi hunters. They also found a strip of cloth that is native to the Mansi hunters on the path where the Dyatlov group was hiking. Upon further investigation, the Mansi people had experienced horrible treatment by the Russian government, trying to take over their land. They forcefully took their children and sent them to boarding school. Now, this is a story we've heard time and time again. They were forbidden to practice their religion, and in 1930s they engaged in deadly combat with the Russians, which resulted in death and imprisonment of their holy shamans. Their known sacred places were destroyed, therefore really explaining why they kept the sacred places a secret on the mountain after that happened. Their religion was outlawed and became illegal, and their shamans were either killed or imprisoned. It's believed that although Igor had researched and learned the Mansi culture and language, he did not know of their secret sacred places on the mountain. Of course he wouldn't. Possibly when they accidentally stumbled on the sacred places, they did something to desecrate it, possibly unknowingly, or they took something such as a talisman, which is left in the mountain by the Mansi people for good luck. but the Mansi people fiercely deny these accusations of murder. In this case, I think it is unfair to place labels on indigenous people, such as the Mansi people, who were never attacking Russians, but were just defending their land. However, there might be a missing piece to this story, which is why the hikers being attacked by the Mansi people seem so believable. The Mansi people said that there are 5 Kani people who lived near the sacred places. These Kani people, these 5 people, were not friendly to Russians or the Mansi people, and they were said to live as savages. They were known to attack and kill hikers who would dare climb up their sacred mountain. The Russian government never looked into this, and it just kind of was never followed. However, this is one lead that can explain why the Mansi people were not aggressive people, yet there's so much evidence to imply that there were people on the mountain and the Dyatlov group was attacked. So I unfortunately conclude this episode with more questions than answers. I don't know if we'll ever have answers, but in 2019, the Russian government reopened the case. However, the indication still remains the death was caused by an avalanche, and there are peer-reviewed articles suggesting that yes, it was due to a small avalanche. No matter which theory you lean towards, one thing is for sure. The 9 hikers of the Dyatlov Pass incident were spirited, youthful young people with bright futures. They were educated, smart, athletic, survivalist, fun, like you and I, seeking out exhilarating life experiences with the utmost craftsmanship and curiosity. They did not deserve the deaths handed down to them, and their mark here on earth will be felt forever. So this concludes today's episode, the Dyatlov Pass incident. I want to go more on a lighter note because that was really heavy for me, and I creeped myself out while I was looking at pictures and reading some of the crazy theories out there. So I kind of put on my Dwight Schrute t-shirt because I love The Office. And for some reason, as I was researching this, I was thinking of Dwight Schrute. And I was thinking, what would Dwight Schrute say? I don't know if the writers of The Office tried to build up his character as a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely get conspiracy theory vibes from Dwight. And I just wondered, what would he say about this? Would he believe some of the crazy theories, like an alien was trying to abduct them and the light from the aircraft sucked them out of the tent, and some of them just couldn't survive the injury, so that's why they had such vicious bruises to their body? I mean, I don't know. These are some crazy theories. I feel like Dwight would be all about those theories. So my question to you is, just to make it a little lighter because it was really heavy, what do you think Dwight Schrute's theory would be on the Dyatlov Pass incident? Or if you have maybe like another character in mind from The Office to see like what would their theories be, I'm sure somebody has something really funny to say. So please leave your comment down below so we can all get a little giggle after such a serious and complex story that does not have a resolution. Anyways, it was really great talking to you all, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!